It's my great honor today to be standing here to let the community know that I, Derek Nepinak, intend to seek re-election for the office of the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. I've been approached from many directions over the last number of months to consider what the future holds for the type of work that I do in the community, both at home, in my home community of Pine Creek, regionally here in Manitoba, but also nationally within the national political discussion. And I have done the work that I need to do to arrive at a place where I've decided that the best thing that I can do as someone who is a spokesperson, someone who is trained in leadership, trained in understanding provincial and federal policy and law that surrounds us in everything we do in life, to stay right here at home and to do the good work that I need to do here. So I'm honored to receive, the nomination for candidacy from a number of the chiefs in Manitoba, from the diversity of regions that we represent, to have my name stand for the election that's going to be held on July 29th and 30th at the Swan Lake First Nation Urban Reserve in Headingley, Manitoba. I consider that a lot of my life has been somewhat of an anomaly. I was born here in Winnipeg years and years ago, and I was born at a time when a lot of our young mothers from our communities were losing their children into systems and adoption systems that were sending a lot of our young people to different parts of Turtle Island, as well as to other parts of the world, other continents. For some reason or another, my mom was able to keep me here in the Anishinaabe lands, here in Treaty 1 territory, and bring me home to my community. The Minigozibee Anishinaabe was called the Pine Creek Indian Band at the time, and I was honored to live amongst my great-grandparents and to see how we lived as Anishinaabe people within the community. Some would say that at that time we were very poor because I lived in a home that didn't have any running water. We heated our home with a wood-burning stove, but it was in those years, those formative years, where I guess my identity was forged, and I've held on to it as best I could, throughout the years of my education. I was educated in the public school system. I graduated from the University of Alberta, and then I graduated with a law degree from the University of Saskatchewan. I was working on my master's degree here in Winnipeg when I was called home to become chief of the Pine Creek First Nation. And I do believe that if you're going to stand for regional representation as a political leader, you have to have a demonstrated history of bringing solutions forward to your community. And when I became chief in Pine Creek, I took our community out of third-party management faster than any community in the history of the region of intervention with Indian affairs. And coming to the Manitoba Assembly, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in the last 3 years, I took an organization that was $1.8 million in debt and having trouble meeting payroll to a place where we are today, where we're a little under $600,000 in debt. So in the 3 years that I've been there, I've erased almost 2/3 of the debt and brought the organization back to a sustainable operation, that needs to go through the transitions that many of us are experiencing now with the type of government relationship that we've begun to develop. And I do believe we played a huge role here in Manitoba nationally in bringing forward what I refer to as the rights-based agenda. The rights-based agenda here in Manitoba does not mean that we look towards federal or provincial governments to provide all the solutions to our challenges as Indigenous people living within the colonial dynamic. But we take back responsibility and we start setting the agenda. And that example has been demonstrated time and time again over the tenure of my leadership at the AMC. It started, coming out of the gate very early with assertions that we will not have federal government tell us what our agendas are. We need to co-develop agendas within the true spirit of treaty. We will not have federal governments dictate to us on paper their legislation, nor their policies, nor their regulations without our involvement and without our consent. And that's been demonstrated by the resource equity position that I brought forward, the efforts to preserve and protect our ecosystems and our environments, and to ensure that communities are engaged each and every way through the entire process of moving towards agreements and solutions within the provincial or federal dynamic that we work in. We got the casino back on track within my tenure. We took the casino at Sand Hills, and it wasn't going anywhere when I became the Grand Chief. There was no funding secured, there was no financing in place, and agreements were not in place to build the casino. I helped get that casino back on track with the work of the other chiefs around the gaming committee, and of course with the help of Chief Francine Leachis at Swan Lake First Nation. We got the casino back on track. It's built, it's open, it's operational, and with the revenues generated from that casino over the next 10 years, we will pay out through AMC upwards of $1 million to each of the 64 communities in Manitoba, which will help in our communities. Having opened that casino also gives us the opportunity to start discussion on the northern casino. The northern casino, which will be in Thompson, is an opportunity for our northern communities to start generating economic development and revenue from the opportunities and the job creation that a northern casino could develop. We've done the market research. We've identified that upwards of 150 jobs could be created for northern people in that community with a northern casino, so we're very excited about where that could lead us. Amongst other agenda items that I plan on bringing forward, I will continue to maintain pressure on this federal government towards a true and empowered rights-based relationship, one that recognizes who we are as the Indigenous people, one that recognizes the historical treaties that are still alive and well today, and one that recognizes the need to come to us and seek the consent of our communities if they have any aspirations towards developing a resource base in Manitoba. And I do believe that with our leadership here in Manitoba that we will continue to maintain a strong stand and continue to move forward in a good way together, and we will continue to hold governments to account for the challenges that we face and the responsibilities and obligations owed to the true relationships that we have here. So I'm very excited about what the next few years will bring forward for all of us here in Manitoba. I believe that I do have a strong base of support amongst the leaders here in Manitoba, and I do believe that there's a strong base of support for what leaders do in Manitoba across the country, because I think that a lot of leaders nationally look right here in Manitoba to see the direction that the Manitoba leadership is going, and they draw a lot from our energy and our strength in standing firm for what we believe in as treaty people, as inherent rights people. So that's what I wanted to cover off. There's a lot more that can be said. The organization has been, I guess, really decimated by the funding cuts that were brought forward by the Conservative government in the last couple of years, but nonetheless we remain committed and dedicated to making a transition. And the transition that I'm referring to is one where historically our political organizations drew a lot from provincial and federal money towards implementing provincial and federal policy and law. And in that way, our organizations became agents for provincial and federal policies and law. We're no longer in that state. We're moving away from that and bringing a rights-based approach to how we move forward. We're getting away from that idea that we've got to go to the government for money and solutions all the time, and moving more towards what I believe an empowered and inspired understanding to the fact that we have to work with one another to find the solutions. We cannot look to the government to bring solutions for us all the time. We have to work together and bring our own solutions forward. And in that regard, I believe that the organization is shrinking. The political organization of the AMC is shrinking in favor of a more focused approach on developing our own skill sets, developing the vast wealth of resources we have amongst our own people, recognizing that our most valuable resources are young people, our children, and we need to create conditions where they can thrive in our communities, either out on the land or right here in the urban center. That's something that I've learned as the Grand Chief over the last number of years, is recognizing that our most valuable resource is not the minerals under the ground or the fish in the lake. Our most valuable resources are young people, and they bring the most opportunity for a prosperous future. And I do believe that's why we took the stand on the education bill. That's why we will continue to take a stand against unilateral legislation in that way, and we'll continue to push forward for, I think, building stronger economies based on recognizing the gifts of our young people. And there are plans on how to create those outcomes for the youngest people in our community. So I'm very, very hopeful that with this process as we move along, that we will implement strategies and And that base of letting our young people know that we believe in them, we hold a lot of optimism towards what they can bring, and we do have a solution that we will be presenting later in the campaign towards Election Day, towards that outcome. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for coming here today. Well, I do believe that over the last number of years, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, under my leadership, has been in a transition away from being an agent of provincial and federal policy and law into a new transformational type of entity, one that protects the rights of our Indigenous people on the lands across the country, and one that focuses on the gifts that we bring as Indigenous people to the land. That transition is in full force right now. We're out of the gate with the transition that needs to happen. I need to continue this work to see it through. I have the options of looking at other ways of doing this, but I believe that the best way to get this job done is to do it right here at home.
So just tell me, what is your message to people who are going to be voting for you, if you can sum it up at the beginning of the campaign?
Well, the Chiefs of Manitoba are the ones that vote, and the Chiefs of Manitoba, I think, are well positioned, and in the transition that we're in, are recognizing that we can no longer look strictly to federal or provincial governments for solutions and program dollars. We've got to see beyond that, and we've got to build the new strategy, which includes, like I said, capitalizing on the opportunities and the gifts that we bring as Indigenous people. This is an economic transition that we're in. And if this economy wants to grow here at home, if people want to see new jobs created, we've got to work together as chiefs and make that happen. And I believe that our people bring the greatest opportunity for growth here in Manitoba.
Okay, and what have you learned over your last term that, or things you want to carry forward that you think would be good?
Well, at times as the Grand Chief, I've seen that the unity that we can build, particularly on issues of national scope, as Manitoba Chiefs, we can bring tremendous strength and power to the national discussion. And I think that unity has always been a very valuable gift that we can bring. I carry the Chiefs Unity pipe here in Manitoba, and when it comes together, we can do tremendous things. And that's what I really hope for, is that regardless of the regional diversity between north and south or east and west, that we come together at key moments and we make the difficult decisions together. That's what I really hope for amongst the leadership.
Right, and you talked about the fiscal changes that you made in your last term seem pretty substantial. Do you
Absolutely.
want to maybe touch on those? So
well, we, as an Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, over 25 years, we received upwards of $250 million in funding for 25 years and have no retained earnings to show for it. That's the nature of the fiscal relationship we had with governments, is that we received funds, but it was always very tightly controlled and had to be spent within every fiscal year to make sure we had no retained earnings. That has led to a scenario where we're completely reliant on the provincial and federal bureaucracies for funding. As we transition away from that, we've received, I think, an 85% funding cut to our federal funding, which has demonstrated and shown the vulnerability that we have in terms of the advocacy work that we need to do towards the government fiscal policy. So we need to transition away from that sole reliance on government money. We need to diversify our revenue streams, and we're doing that right now with the operations of our new casino. We're going to focus on a northern casino, and we're going to put more money in play. We're going to create value for the leadership as well as our community members that are associated to the AMC.
Right, what about for viewers of our show? Maybe what's your message for people watching CTV, or to see why is it important for you to be reelected?
I think that for viewers of CTV, I think that it's important for the viewership to understand and recognize that the greatest chance for Manitoba to regain economic prosperity, to move forward in a good way, to become one of the leading provinces in the country, you need a fully engaged government that's going to work with Indigenous people on the land. Because Manitoba has such great gifts, we have such a broad diversity of people from all over the world who are coming here to build on the opportunities that present themselves. And unless we're willing to engage with one another as Indigenous people, but also with provincial governments, then we're going to have a real struggle. I bring solutions that bring equity to the table, equitable negotiations, equitable discussions, and respect on a treaty basis. And that's something I think that Manitobans need to know. We are potentially the greatest ally that any provincial government could ever have as Indigenous people here.
Right, so can you just sum up what you think the strengths are of the Indigenous population here in Manitoba?
Well, it's not purely a secular discussion. We bring a deep and rich history here. We've always been here, and we're not going anywhere. And through our rich history, we also bring a spirituality and a power that isn't currently being realized because of a lot of the challenges we've faced over the last number of years with policy and colonial processes that we've been subjected to. We're waking up from that now. We have highly educated young people who are coming up through the systems. We need to nurture that, we need to recognize it, and we need to enhance it by bringing new education solutions. And that might mean sometimes sitting down with the province and establishing best practices and creating opportunity.